A briefcase carrying $1 million bond vanished mid-flight, but that was just the beginning. Thunder roared across the sky as the private jet cut through thick, stormy clouds, its wings trembling under the weight of turbulent winds. Inside, tension crackled through the luxurious cabin, though the passengers remained composed mostly. Lavish leather seats gleamed under dim cabin lights, and glasses of champagne trembled on their trays. Beneath this polished surface, however, lay a growing unease. At the heart of this high-stakes flight was a single, impenetrable briefcase locked securely in the cargo hold inside it, $1 million bond, entrusted for a covert and urgent international transaction, a symbol of unimaginable wealth and power. Seated near the window, Vera Holt, a striking heiress with sharp eyes and an unsettling calm, stared out at the dark clouds as if they were an old adversary. Across from her, Ethan Shaw, a tech tycoon with a perpetual smirk, tapped impatiently on his smartwatch. Beside them, Lorna Price, the stewardess, moved with mechanical precision, her polite smile betraying the strain of the storm. Jordan Huxley, a quiet businessman with calculating eyes, sat rigidly, lost in thought. The jet lurched violently, pulling gasps from even the most composed passengers. The pilot's strained voice crackled through the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, please fasten your seatbelts. We're experiencing severe turbulence." But turbulence wasn't the real threat. Suddenly, the plane pitched downward, and alarms blared. The captain's voice, now panicked, cut through the chaos. "We have a situation emergency landing required." Within minutes, the jet touched down on a deserted runway, skidding to a halt amid sheets of rain. The passengers, shaken but unharmed, stumbled down the steps onto the slick tarmac, their breaths visible in the cold air. It was then that the first whisper of unease turned into full-blown shock. Security personnel, grim-faced and drenched, emerged from the jet, one of them clutching an empty steel briefcase with trembling hands. The locks had been expertly dismantled, no signs of brute force, no alarms triggered. The bond, worth a fortune, had vanished into thin air during the flight. "How is that possible?" Vera whispered, her voice low but sharp. Before anyone could respond, a crew member rushed forward, holding a slip of paper with shaking fingers. This was left in the cargo hold. Detective Alex Hunter, called to the scene minutes after the landing, took the note and read it aloud, his voice cutting through the stormy night. "The bond has vanished, but a bigger mystery awaits." Silence gripped the group. Even the storm seemed to hold its breath. Alex's sharp eyes scanned the faces of the passengers. Each one wore a mask of shock, but he knew better. Beneath those masks lay secrets waiting to unravel. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the grim determination on Alex's face. "Nobody leaves," he said, his voice cold and commanding. "We have a thiefer worse among us." Cliffhanger ending. The rain poured harder, mingling with the tension in the air as one thought echoed in every mind. What mystery could be bigger than $1 million heist? The investigation begins. The rain hadn't let up since the plane's emergency landing, drenching the tarmac in shimmering puddles. The flashing lights of security vehicles cast eerie reflections as Detective Alex Hunter arrived on the scene, his long coat already soaked by the relentless storm. His sharp eyes scanned the chaos with a practiced intensity, taking in every detail: the scattered passengers, the grim security personnel, and the ominous emptiness of the now infamous cargo hold. Alex was a man known for two things: solving impossible cases and carrying the weight of his past like an unspoken curse. His reputation preceded him, but tonight, even his hardened instincts whispered that something about this case was different, more dangerous. The crew and passengers, a collection of the wealthy and influential, stood under a makeshift canopy, their designer clothes damp and clinging to them like guilt. Vera Holt, the unshaken heiress, maintained her composure, though Alex noticed her eyes darting toward the plane as if calculating something unseen. Ethan Shaw, the tech mogul, had traded his cocky smirk for a scowl of irritation. Lorna Price, the stewardess, clutched a clipboard with knuckles turned white, while Jordan Huxley stood at the edge of the group, his gaze fixed on the horizon, lost in thought. No signs of forced entry, a security officer reported grimly, his voice barely audible over the rain. It's like the briefcase vanished into thin air. Alex knelt by the open cargo hold, running his fingers along the slick steel floor. The locks had been expertly dismantled, clean and precise, a professional job. Whoever had done this knew exactly what they were doing. He rose, his mind already racing through possibilities. "Everyone stays here," he commanded, his voice cutting through the storm. "No exceptions." The questioning began, methodical and relentless. Vera claimed she had been asleep during the flight, but Alex caught the faint hesitation in her voice. Ethan Shaw insisted he was too busy reviewing stock reports to notice anything unusual, though his darting eyes told a different story. Lorna Price stammered through her account, her polite mask slipping under Alex's scrutiny. Jordan Huxley simply shrugged, offering little beyond cryptic one-word answers. Alex knew they were all hiding something. But what? Then came the break he didn't expect. A commotion near the terminal caught his attention. Security personnel were shouting as a figure in black strode toward them, seemingly unfazed by the chaos. The man's face was obscured by the brim of a soaked hat, and his gloved hands carried a small package wrapped tightly in plastic. "Hey, stop right there," one officer barked, drawing his weapon. "Can you solve this mystery before the detective? Comment your guess." The figure paused, calmly placing the package on the ground. Without a word, he turned and walked into the darkness, disappearing as swiftly as he had appeared. Alex's pulse quickened. He rushed toward the package, the rain stinging his face. Carefully unwrapping the plastic, he revealed its contents: a single sheet of paper, ink smudged by the rain but still legible. The bond was only the beginning. Follow the trail, or more will vanish. The message sent a chill down his spine. Alex's jaw clenched as he realized this was no ordinary heist. Cliffhanger ending. As Alex looked up from the note, his sharp gaze swept the dark expanse of the runway. The man in black was gone, but not entirely. A faint glimmer caught Alex's eye: a sleek black car idling at the edge of the terminal, its headlights cutting through the storm. The engine roared to life, tires screeching as the car sped away into the night. Alex bolted toward his own vehicle, determination hardening his features. "This isn't over," he muttered under his breath. But even Alex couldn't shake the question gnawing at his mind. Who was the man in black, and what deadly game had just begun? The suspects. Twists begin. The interrogation room buzzed with tension. Detective Alex Hunter's gaze between the four figures seated before him. The rain had left streaks on the floor, as if the storm outside had seeped into the very fabric of the investigation. These were no ordinary passengers, they were players in a dangerous game, and Alex was determined to uncover their roles. Each suspect sat with a different energy. Vera Holt, the heiress, was draped in a tailored coat that still looked impeccable despite the chaos. Her composure was unnerving, her eyes cold and calculating. Alex noticed the subtle way her fingers tapped against the table, measured, rhythmic, as though counting down to something only she knew. "It's unfortunate," she said in a voice devoid of concern. "But these things happen in business." "Business?" Alex leaned forward, his voice sharp. "We're talking about $1 million bond vanishing mid-flight, not a missed stock trade." Vera's lips curved into a faint, unreadable smile. "Exactly." Ethan Shaw, the tech mogul, was a stark contrast. He shifted restlessly in his seat, his slicked-back hair now damp and unruly. He was used to control, but tonight it had slipped from his grasp. "Look, detective, I don't know what you think, but I had nothing to do with this mess. I don't even care about bond scriptos where the real money is." Alex arched a brow. "Is that why your company's under investigation for financial fraud?" Ethan's jaw clenched. "That's nonsense." Alex let the silence hang, watching as Ethan's confidence wavered. Lorna Price, the stewardess, sat with a nervous energy that bordered on panic. Her eyes darted around the room as though searching for an escape route. She clutched a delicate chain around her neck, her knuckles white. "I was just doing my job," she stammered. "Serving drinks, keeping everyone comfortable." "Comfortable?" Alex's tone was incredulous. while someone was stealing $1 million bond right under your nose. Lorna flinched. I didn't see anything. You're sure about that? Alex pressed. Because I find it hard to believe you were serving champagne while a heist was going down. Tears threatened to spill from Lorna's eyes, but Alex knew better than to trust appearances. Finally, there was Jordan Huxley, the quiet businessman with an unsettling intensity. His tailored suit was immaculate, and his expression unreadable. Unlike the others, he didn't fidget or falter. He simply stared at Alex with eyes that held secrets. "You don't say much, do you?" Alex remarked. Jordan's voice was low, steady. "Talking doesn't solve problems. Action does." "Is that how you built your empire?" Alex asked. "Or did you learn that philosophy elsewhere?" Jordan's lips twitched into the faintest of smirks. "You'd be surprised what you can learn from the past, detective." Alex felt the weight of those words, as though Jordan knew something he wasn't saying. As the questioning continued, inconsistencies began to surface. Vera's calm demeanor cracked ever so slightly when Alex mentioned offshore accounts. Ethan's bravado faltered when confronted with flight logs showing private dealings with high-risk investors. Lorna's innocent facade wavered as Alex hinted at a previous incident on another flight. And Jordan? Jordan remained a fortress of secrets, impenetrable yet undeniably dangerous. Cliffhanger ending. Just as Alex was piecing together the web of lies, a uniformed officer burst into the room, breathless and wide-eyed. "Detective," the officer panted, "you need to see this." Alex shot to his feet, adrenaline spiking. "What is it?" The officer's voice wavered. "The briefcase, it's back, but it's not empty." The room fell into stunned silence. "What do you mean?" Alex demanded. The officer swallowed hard. "There's a hand inside it." Alex's blood ran cold. The suspects stared at each other, shock rippling through their expressions. But Alex's instincts told him one thing: someone in this room knew exactly whose hand it was. And they were about to make their next move. Like if you think Ethan Shaw is guilty, share if you think it's Vera Holt. The investigation was already hanging by a thread, but Alex Hunter's instincts told him the real storm was just beginning. He stood in his dimly lit office, staring at the enigmatic note from the crime scene, now spread out on his cluttered desk. The ink glistened under the flickering light, and his fingers traced the strange symbol scrawled at the bottom, a pattern that didn't belong in a ransom note. It was too precise, too calculated. A puzzle hidden in plain sight. Encrypted. The word slipped from his lips like a breath of warning. From the other side of the room, Riley Tran, his tech expert, didn't even look up. She was hunched over a cluster of monitors, eyes darting across lines of code and decryption algorithms that pulsed like an electric storm on her screens. Her fingers danced over the keyboard, her expression shifting from frustration to intrigue. "This isn't just any code," she muttered, tapping her stylus against her chin. "It's sophisticated, military-grade encryption. Whoever wrote this wasn't just leaving a clue, they were leaving a challenge." Alex folded his arms, jaw tight. "What does it say?" Riley's fingers blurred over the keys. The symbols shifted, rearranging into something readable. A single line of text emerged, glowing ominously on the screen. "Follow the pulse where shadows meet the light." Alex read the words aloud, his brow furrowing. A riddle. He hated riddles. "What the hell does that mean?" he asked, his voice edged with impatience. Riley smirked faintly. "Sounds like someone wants to play hide and seek." But the words were already echoing in Alex's mind. The pulse, shadows meet the light. His brain moved fast, sorting through locations, memories, and crime scene details. Then click. The answer locked into place. His eyes widened. The old solar power facility on the outskirts of town. Riley arched a brow. That place has been abandoned for years. Exactly. Alex was already grabbing his coat. "Keep digging, Riley, if I don't check in." "I'll send the cavalry," she finished for him. Their eyes met, and for a split second, the weight of the case pressed down on them. Then, without another word, Alex was gone, his mind racing toward the darkness waiting for him. A desolate encounter. The high-tech solar facility loomed against the night sky, its skeletal panels jutting toward the heavens like the remains of some forgotten machine god. Moonlight slashed through the towering structures, casting eerie, jagged shadows across the cracked pavement. The air was thick with the scent of rust and decay. Silence wrapped around the place, so absolute that even his own footsteps seemed intrusive. Alex moved cautiously, his breath steady, his senses sharpened. His flashlight cut through the darkness, revealing long-forgotten machinery and shattered control panels. Broken glass crunched beneath his boots. This place wasn't just abandoned, it had been left to rot. And yet, something was here. A faint hum rippled through the stillness. Alex stopped, listened. It wasn't mechanical. It was deliberate, rhythmic, like a pulse. His gut twisted. Someone was expecting him. Following the sound, he moved deeper into the facility, the air growing heavier with each step. His flashlight flickered as he swept it across the walls. And then, there it was. A symbol, identical to the one on the note, etched into the concrete like a ghostly signature. His pulse pounded in his ears. Beneath the symbol, a small keypad blinked red. A test, a threshold. Alex exhaled slowly, steadied his hands, and punched in the numbers Riley had deciphered. For a heartbeat, nothing happened. Then, a mechanical hiss. The keypad turned green. The wall shuddered. Dust spiraled into the air as a hidden door groaned open, revealing only darkness beyond. Alex's grip tightened on his flashlight. Someone had left this door for him to find. But the real question was, who was waiting for him on the other side? A dark revelation. The moment Alex stepped inside, the air changed. The room was sleek, sterile, and humming, with an eerie kind of intelligence. Rows of monitors bathed the walls in a ghostly blue glow, illuminating encrypted communications scrolling too fast to follow. Data pulsed across the screen's financial records, blueprints of international banks, satellite imagery, and surveillance feeds of locations spanning the globe. This wasn't just an abandoned facility. It was an operational nerve center. His pulse hammered in his ears. A bank robbery number that had been a sideshow. This was the real act. An underground network, he whispered, his breath barely disturbing the charged air. This whole thing was a setup. His gaze locked onto one of the largest screens, displaying a world map. Several major financial hubs were marked London, New York, Tokyo, each with streams of fluctuating data feeding into them. But one location pulsed more ominously than the rest. Right here. Alex's stomach twisted. The stolen bonds had never been the endgame. They had been bait to distract authorities while something far bigger was unfolding. But what? What kind of operation required this level of deception? He stepped closer, scanning the data streams, his mind racing through possibilities. Money laundering, cyber warfare, financial destabilization. Then a realization hit him like a gut punch. Whoever was running this wasn't just stealing money. They were moving entire economies. The pieces clicked together in his mind, fast and deadly. He had just walked into something far beyond the jurisdiction of any local detective. And that's when he heard it. A soft shuffle, a shift in the air. Someone else was here. Alex's instincts fired before his brain could fully process. He whirled around, gun raised, his finger tense on the trigger. From the shadows, a figure stepped forward. Dressed in black tactical gear, they moved with deliberate precision, their face obscured behind a sleek, featureless mask. They weren't here to talk. In their gloved hand, they held a small device. A blinking red light pulsed ominously at its center. "You've seen too much, detective," the figure said, their voice distorted low, cold, and inhuman. Cliffhanger ending. Alex didn't hesitate. He fired twice. The first bullet missed as the figure dodged with almost unnatural reflexes. The second struck their shoulder, forcing them back a step, but not enough. The masked figure didn't stagger, didn't hesitate. They simply pressed the button. The explosion ripped through the facility like the roar of a beast awakening from its slumber. The shockwave hit Alex before he could react, flinging him backward. His body slammed into a metal console, pain detonating along his spine. His ears rang with a shrill, deafening tone. Then fire. A violent eruption of flames engulfed the walls, swallowing the monitors, the data, the evidence. Sparks rained like fireflies, and thick, acrid smoke choked the air, turning the room into a swirling nightmare of heat and chaos. Alex gasped for breath, his lungs burning, his vision swimming. But through the blur, he saw them, the masked figure, still standing, still watching. Then, without a word, they turned and disappeared into the haze, slipping away as easily as a ghost. Alex coughed violently, forcing himself to his feet even as his legs screamed in protest. He had seconds made before the entire facility caved in. His mind raced. The network, the attack, the mastermind. He had seen enough to know this wasn't just about stolen money. This was about power. And now he was a loose end. A final explosion rocked the building, and Alex lunged forward, diving through the flames toward the only exit he could see. As the fire consumed the room behind him, one thought burned in his mind. The game wasn't over. It had just begun. The final act. The weight of the investigation pressed heavily on Detective Alex Hunter as he drove through the darkened streets of the city, his car slicing through the thick mist like a knife through a lingering nightmare. Streetlights flickered, casting eerie, distorted shadows on the pavement. The city, once familiar, once a place of order, now felt like a labyrinth of deceit, where every turn led him closer to a truth he wasn't sure he was ready to face. The encrypted messages, the stolen bond, the underground network, all the pieces were there, scattered like shattered glass. And now, they arranged themselves into one chilling realization. Someone in his inner circle had betrayed him. He gritted his teeth, his fingers tightening around the steering wheel. How long had he been blind to it? The memories came rushing back, conversations that had felt slightly off, moments that hadn't added up, subtle hesitations in voices he trusted. Every missed detail now screamed for attention, demanding to be acknowledged. Trust no one. It was the first lesson he'd ever learned in this line of work, hammered into him through blood, sweat, and 1,000 lies. And tonight, that lesson would be tested like never before. A deadly meeting. The abandoned shipping yard stretched before him like a graveyard of forgotten crimes. The salty tang of the sea mixed with the metallic stench of rusted steel, wrapping around Alex like a noose. Massive shipping containers loomed in the dim light, their towering forms casting jagged shadows across the cracked pavement. He killed the engine, the soft click of his car door, the only sound before silence swallowed the night again. His heartbeat pounded in his ears. He reached for his gun, its familiar weight steadying him as he stepped out. Every shadow felt alive, every gust of wind carried a whisper of something unseen. Then, a voice cut through the stillness. "You're persistent, detective." Alex turned sharply, gun aimed at the figure stepping out from behind a stack of crates. The man was exactly who Alex had suspected. Ethan Shaw, the tech mogul, the golden boy of the corporate world, a man with more money than morals. His crisp, tailored suit gleamed under the weak light of a nearby flood lamp, but his expression was something colder, something lethal. Alex's jaw tightened. "Shaw," his voice was steel. "I should have known you'd be involved." Shaw chuckled, the sound smooth, mocking. "Involved? Oh, Alex, I am the operation." And then movement. Shadows shifted. Figures emerged from the darkness, silent and deliberate, like predators circling their prey. 5, 6, no, 7 men, all armed. Their weapons glinted in the dim light, forming a deadly perimeter around Alex. But none of them made his stomach drop. None of them made his blood freeze. Until he saw her. Riley Tran, his trusted tech expert, his partner in this hellish case. The woman who had worked tirelessly beside him, decrypting codes, chasing leads who had, only hours ago, seemed as desperate as him to solve this mystery. Now, she stood beside Shaw, and she was holding a gun. Alex felt the breath leave his body like a punch to the ribs. "Riley." His voice barely made it past his throat. "No, that this isn't right." Her face was a battlefield of emotions. Guilt, conflict, regret. But she didn't lower the gun. "I'm sorry, Alex," she said, her voice quieter than he had ever heard it. Haunted. It was never supposed to go this far. But it had. And now, there was no going back. The moment of betrayal. For the first time in years, Alex felt something he hadn't allowed himself to feel. Not fear, not anger. Hurt. She was the one person he had trusted without question. She was the one person he had never suspected. And now, with her standing there, gun in hand, eyes filled with sorrow, he realized just how deep the deception ran. Why? His voice cracked, barely above a whisper. Why, Riley? Her grip on the gun faltered for half a second. But half a second wasn't enough. Not for redemption. Not for forgiveness. And not to stop what was about to happen next. What happens next? Does Alex fight his way out? Does Riley pull the trigger? Or does Shaw have something far worse planned for him? The next move is theirs. And Alex? Alex is out of time. Betrayal and confrontation. You sold me out. Alex's voice was edged with pain and fury. It's bigger than you think, Riley said urgently. They're not just after the bond, it's about controlling global financial systems. The bond was just the bait. Shaw interrupted. Enough talking. Hand over the evidence you've gathered, Hunter, or this ends badly for you. Alex's mind raced. He was outnumbered and outgunned, but he wasn't outsmarted. His hand brushed against the small transmitter in his Pocahontas signal already sent to backup. Stalling for time, he said, "You think you're untouchable, Shaw. You think betraying me was your masterstroke, Riley. You have no idea what's coming." Suddenly, the distant roar of engines filled the air. Police vehicles barreled into the shipping yard, lights flashing. Shaw's men opened fire, and chaos erupted. The chase and revelation. Alex ducked behind a crate, returning fire with precision. He saw Riley hesitate, torn between loyalty and survival. "Help me take him down," Alex shouted over the gunfire. "You can still make this right." Riley's face contorted with conflict. Finally, she made her choice. She turned on Shaw, disabling the security system controlling their escape route. "You betrayed me." Shaw snarled at Riley, raising his weapon. Before he could pull the trigger, Alex tackled him to the ground. They grappled, fists flying, until Alex landed a decisive blow that knocked Shaw unconscious. The police swarmed the scene, arresting Shaw's men. Cliffhanger ending. As the dust settled, Alex stood panting, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. Riley approached cautiously. "You saved my life," she said quietly. "You betrayed it first," Alex replied coldly. "But you helped me finish this." Before she could respond, Alex's phone buzzed. He frowned, answering it. A distorted voice crackled through the line. "Congratulations, Detective Hunter. You've won this round, but the game is far from over." The line went dead. Alex's jaw clenched. He looked out at the horizon, knowing this was just the beginning of a much larger conspiracy. The audience is left on edge, wondering who was truly behind the operation, and what dangerous game Alex would face next. The climax. The high-security interrogation room buzzed with tension, the low hum of surveillance equipment creating an eerie undercurrent to the charged silence. Every detail of the room was designed to unnerve: cold steel walls, harsh overhead lighting, and monitors displaying live feeds from all angles of the building. Armed guards stood at attention in each corner, their hands resting on holstered weapons, their gazes sharp and unyielding. Seated around the gleaming steel table were the suspects. Vera Holt, the calm and poised heiress, her diamond bracelet catching the sterile light as she sat with an air of forced indifference. Ethan Shaw, the ruthless tech mogul, his arrogance barely concealing the flicker of something darker beneath the surface. Lorna Price, the nervous stewardess, hands clenched tightly in her lap, eyes darting around like a caged animal. Jordan Huxley, the enigmatic businessman, his expression unreadable, fingers tapping lightly against the table's surface. Each of them played a role in the tangled web of deception. Each of them had secrets. And Detective Alex Hunter was about to tear those secrets wide open. He stood at the head of the table, his gaze razor-sharp, unyielding. This was it, the final move. "I've pieced it all together," Alex said, his tone measured, calculated. "Every clue, every lie, every step you took to cover your tracks." His voice was steady, but beneath it lay a controlled fire, the culmination of weeks of deception, chases, and near misses. "And now," he continued, scanning the table, "it's time to expose the truth." A shift rippled through the suspects. Subtle, almost imperceptible. But Alex saw it. The slight tensing of shoulders, the flicker of eyes meeting and breaking away, the way Vera's fingers curled inward, as if grasping at control. They were afraid. Not of him. Of the truth. Unraveling the mastermind. Alex took his time, his footsteps slow and deliberate as he circled the table like a predator stalking its prey. Then he stopped behind Vera Holt. "You were calm, too calm for someone who just lost $1 million bond," he said, voice laced with quiet certainty. "That was my first red flag." A flicker of something passed over Vera's perfectly composed face, too quick for most to notice, but Alex did. "But it wasn't just your demeanor," he pressed on, stepping closer. "It was your timing. You booked that flight at the last minute, didn't you? As if you knew exactly when to be out of reach." Vera's lips tightened. She held her silence, but the stillness in her shoulders betrayed her. Alex turned away, shifting his attention to Ethan Shaw. "Then there's you," Alex said, his voice hardening. "The billionaire with a god complex. You built your empire on algorithms, but beneath the surface. Your tech empire is a smokescreen for illegal data operations. You had the expertise to pull off the encryption on the note, the one that led us here." Ethan let out a slow, mocking chuckle. "You're grasping at straws, detective," he drawled, leaning back. "This is all speculation." Alex's eyes darkened. "Am I?" His voice was icy. "Because I checked. The cipher we cracked. It matches the same encryption software used in your offshore servers. You had access. You had motive. But even you," Alex leaned in, "even you weren't the one pulling the strings." A flicker of irritation crossed Shaw's face before he smothered it. Alex pivoted, his gaze landing on Lorna Price. "And then there's you, Lorna, the sweet, unassuming stewardess, the one who had unrestricted access to the jet, the one who could slip in and out without raising suspicion." Lorna's breath hitched, her knuckles whitening as she gripped the edge of the table. "I don't know what you're talking about," she stammered, but her voice wavered. Alex ignored the denial. "You didn't act alone. Someone got to you. Someone used you. But even then you hesitated, didn't you? That's why the plan didn't go as smoothly as they intended." Lorna swallowed hard, her throat bobbing. Alex's next step brought him face to face with Jordan Huxley. Unlike the others, Jordan didn't react. His expression remained unreadable, his fingers still tapping lightly against the table. "And then we have you," Alex murmured, watching him carefully. Quiet, calculated, watching everything unfold but saying nothing. For the first time, Jordan smiled. Not the nervous twitch of a guilty man, a slow, knowing curve of the lips. "Get to the point, detective," Jordan said smoothly. Alex's heart pounded. He knew exactly what was happening. And suddenly, the pieces clicked into place. He turned back to the table, placing his hands flat on the surface. His voice dropped, low, deliberate, unshakable. "The mastermind isn't any one of you." The air in the room changed a shift so small, but powerful enough to send a chill down Alex's spine. "It's someone you all trusted." The stillness was absolute. Vera's eyes widened, realization dawning. Ethan's smirk disappeared, replaced by something colder. Lorna's lips parted as if to protest, but no words came. Even Jordan's fingers stopped tapping. Someone had played them all. And now, it was time to reveal who. What happens next? Does Alex name the true mastermind? Does the suspect lash out in desperation? Or does the real puppet master still have one last move left to play? One thing was certain. This game was far from over. The shocking twist. Alex turned to the surveillance monitors, gripping the remote in his hand. With a single click, a security feed flickered onto the largest screen. A grainy black-and-white video played. A woman stood in the dimly lit corridor of a high-security facility. Her posture confident, her expression unreadable. She was issuing orders to a team of masked operatives as they moved in swift, calculated precision. Gasps filled the room. Vera's hand flew to her mouth. Ethan sat up straighter, his cocky demeanor vanishing. Lorna's eyes widened in sheer disbelief. The woman on the screen was Riley Tran, Alex's most trusted ally, the one person he had never doubted. Alex's jaw clenched as his voice cut through the stunned silence. "Riley Tran," he said, his tone edged with betrayal. "The one person I trusted more than anyone, and she played us all." A sharp intake of breath rippled through the group. "But here's the kicker," Alex continued, his voice thick with tension. "The bond was never the true target. That was just the bait, a distraction. The real prize was something far more dangerous, something capable of destabilizing global financial markets." He turned back to the screen, watching as Riley carefully extracted a small, unmarked device from a secure vault. "A classified algorithm," Alex said darkly. "One that could bring entire economies to their knees." Vera exhaled sharply. She was always 10 steps ahead, she murmured. The final standoff. Before anyone could fully process the weight of the revelation, a sudden blaring alarm shattered the silence. Red warning lights flashed across the monitors. The air crackled with tension as the security feed switched to a new angle showing Riley slipping through a hidden passage. Alex's phone buzzed. He answered, his grip tightening. A familiar voice came through the line, smooth, confident, and laced with amusement. "You're good, Alex," Riley said, "but not good enough. This isn't over." The call cut out. Before Alex could react, the main doors burst open. A team of masked operatives stormed in, weapons drawn. Guards shouted. Chaos erupted. Gunfire rang out. Tables overturned. Papers scattered like falling snow. Ethan dove for cover. Vera let out a strangled gasp, and Jordan pulled Lorna behind the steel table as bullets ricocheted off the walls. Alex raised his gun, his voice cutting through the pandemonium. Nobody moves. But amidst the chaos, his eyes darted to the surveillance screen. Riley was getting away. Alex made a split-second decision. He had two choices: stay and secure the suspects, chase Riley before she vanished for good. His heartbeat thundered in his ears as he made his choice. Cliffhanger ending. The screen flickered with Riley's image one last time. Her dark eyes met Alex's through the camera lens school, unshaken. "This isn't over." Her voice echoed in his mind as Alex sprinted toward the hidden passageway. The camera feed cut to static. The screen faded to black. "To be continued,"